We go out to Vancouver now and join James Cybulski on the West Coast. How are you doing, James?
How good do I look?
You look
honestly.
amazing.
I know. How you doing?
Doing great. How are you doing right now? Are you okay with what's going on right now in Vancouver?
You know, the first thing when the news came down about Jacob Markstrom yesterday, a good friend of mine sent me a text right away and said, Canuck Luck. Canuck Luck strikes again.
Yep.
And for a team that has had a notorious history of injury issues over the years, and you look at the numbers over the last decade, they kind of they back those trends up. Things have been going really well from an injury standpoint, at least for the most part this year, where they had stayed relatively healthy, and at least the bodies that had gone down, the top end guys had stayed healthy. And so when the trickle effect started a couple of weeks ago with Brock Besser going down, you know, Josh Levo had been out of the lineup for the last couple of months as it is, but you know, Michael Furlan word came down over the last little bit that he wasn't going to play again this year with all the concussion issues that he has had to endure since signing on as a Vancouver Canuck. You know, there's three of your top 9 forwards from the mix that are kind of sidelined right now. But then Jacob Markstrom, who has been this team's MVP. You know, the interesting thing is here, and on my show this morning, we did a poll question asking fans if you believe in Thatcher Demko, who's been the backup all season. You know, do you believe in this guy getting the Canucks in the playoffs? He was tabbed as the goalie of the future. 86% of respondents, 86% gave a thumbs up to Thatcher Demko. I just don't see it with the numbers, and he could certainly change the landscape because of how fascinating things are with the Canucks salary cap situation, with their goaltending situation, because of the fact that Jacob Markstrom is a pending unrestricted free agent. Man, this has a story to either get Thatcher Demko a statue here in this city to where the Canucks suddenly have all the leverage in the negotiation with Markstrom, or it could, in a big way, get Jacob Markstrom paid this summer big time.
Yeah, 10-6-2, I believe, on the season, a .905 save percentage for Thatcher Demko, who went the NCAA route. But yeah, it's tough. What's the diagnosis? Has the MRI happened yet? Do we know
Wednesday.
The timeline yet?
Wednesday is the MRI. What the organization is saying right now is it looks like it's 3 to 4 weeks. They're bracing for a month. And if that's the case, if you're basing it on 4 weeks from yesterday, you're looking at a 15-game window that Thatcher Demko is going to have to be the guy. Now, I guess if there's any sort of encouraging sign in this, it's that the Canucks had time to react to this. Late yesterday afternoon, before the trade deadline, they were in Montreal and realized that something wasn't right with Markstrom. He was going to miss time, and they were able to make a move at the deadline to pick up veteran goaltender Louis Domingue. Now, Domingue has kind of kicked around the league over the last few years. He's got stops with the Coyotes, he's got stops with the Lightning, and he's got stops most recently with the New Jersey Devils. But here's a guy at 27 who's got almost 140 career NHL games under his belt. They wanted to make the move for a guy like Louis Domingue because they don't want Thatcher Demko to be looking over his shoulder. They want to give Thatcher Demko a chance to legitimately be the guy here.
Yeah, why not, right? I mean, it's all about managing personalities, managing those expectations. You want him in the best spot to have success. What else was Jim Benning close to? What else? Was there anything that was close yesterday?
Well, I mean, Jim Benning wasn't going to tip his hand too much in terms of what he was going to do. Well, and particularly so considering the man was fined $50,000 4 years ago for talking about players under contract with other teams. But there had been a lot of speculation that the Canucks were linked closely to Tyson Barrie with the Toronto Maple Leafs, and there was a lot of talk with the Canucks and Tyson Barrie going back to last summer. And a lot of people thought that maybe there could be a draft day trade involving Tyson Barrie with the Colorado Avalanche at the time and the Vancouver Canucks. It didn't go down. The Canucks went in a different direction. They picked up JT Miller, and that has worked out brilliantly for the Canucks. That giving up a first-round pick has been an absolute steal for the value that JT Miller has turned out to be. A very manageable cap hit. at $5.5 million, and JT Miller right now leading the team in scoring. He has been that good right now for the Vancouver Canucks this season. But the Tyson Barrie one has been something that, and he has been someone that the organization has long coveted. Obviously, the asking price for the Toronto Maple Leafs was just simply too rich for the Canucks blood, and I just don't think they had the assets to be able to make that work. And, do they even have the dollars to make it work in the summer if he becomes an unrestricted free agent? I think most people would look at the Canucks salary cap situation and say they don't have the money to make it work. Another name that was linked to the Canucks was a guy named Wayne Simmons, a veteran tough guy who played for years with the Flyers and ultimately with Nashville last year, and then this season with the New Jersey Devils. He goes to Buffalo, but the Canucks, he only went for a conditional 5th rounder. I think the Canucks were more interested in maybe swapping a body for a body potentially there, but it ultimately didn't work for the Devils and for the Canucks. And so Wayne Simmons is now a member of the Sabres, and the Canucks kind of stand pat from that standpoint.
When it comes to Canucks fans, James Cybulski joining us from Sportsnet Radio in Vancouver this morning. When it comes to Canucks fans, there can't be too many things that feel better than a 9-3 win on a Saturday night over Boston. As much as the Canucks hate the Bruins, that snapped a mini 2-game slide. But you're 1 point back of Edmonton now. You've got a game in hand. You got a few games in hand on Vegas as you try and climb back up into the top of the Pacific Division standings. The end of this road trip, these are 2 pretty big games coming up. I know there's 4 left on the road trip, but Montreal tonight, Ottawa on Thursday. These are 2 big games to make up some ground.
Yeah, and if there was ever a time to really try to roll through the East right now, this would be it, wouldn't you think? I mean, Montreal stripping down, and they still got some players on their team with Carey Price and Shea Weber and Jeff Petrie and Max Domi if he can find his groove again, but the Habs obviously selling off Nate Thompson and Ilya Kovalchuk over the last couple of days. The Senators, I mean, they're just going with spare parts out on the ice beyond just Brady Tkachuk and Thomas Chabot. There's not much else there right now on that roster as they kind of look to the future. It is a good week for the Canucks to try to catch some of these teams. I mean, the Leafs on Saturday, there's a team that's reeling right now, given the week that they just endured, losing to an emergency backup goaltender who is now a household name across the country in David Ayres. But you look at this trip. This is a road trip for the Canucks right now, a 4-gamer that is a palatable one if there ever was. Montreal, Ottawa, Toronto, and then you got Columbus, who just snapped a 6-game losing streak last night against the Senators. So they're winnable games. It's a manageable Eastern swing. They might be catching a lot of these teams at the right time, but they ultimately have to take care of business. And you're right. To win a game like they did against Boston, and in fairness to the Bruins, they had lost 3. They had played 3 and 4 nights, and that was the 3rd game in 4 nights. They were tired, but for a win against the Bruins in this market, it means so much. There is still the stink and the stain and the pain from that 2011 heartbreaking Cup final loss to Boston that it took this franchise, it took this city years to recover, and still hasn't completely recovered just yet. So a nice little pushback by the Canucks and an emphatic win, and one that they really needed. They had won just 2 games in their prior 8 going into that game on Saturday. I think everybody breathing a little easier. You've also got Tyler Toffoli all of a sudden clicking as a new member of the Canucks, right? He picks up a 3-point night in that victory, and suddenly in the first 2 games as the Vancouver Canuck, Tyler Toffoli has fit in very well with Pedersen and Miller, having potted 4 points in his first 2 games.
Yeah, that was my next question, was just to ask you about Tyler Toffoli, because it seems like he's fit in really nicely, and that's turned out to be a real nice move for the Canucks.
Yeah, and you know what? It's funny because a week ago, this market was outraged, absolutely outraged over the price that they had to give up. It was what? You gave up a 2nd-round pick and Tyler Madden, and the way that people talked about Tyler Madden, you would think that he was the next, he was a future Hall of Fame player. And you know what? Tyler Madden might turn out to be a solid player in the National Hockey League, but obviously, the Canucks felt that they were able to part ways with Tyler Madden in terms of where they viewed him in their hierarchy, in terms of their top prospects. But I'll tell you what, when you look at the prices that people paid for deadline rentals, I think to land a guy who's shown that he can score 30 in the past in the National Hockey League, a guy who's won a Stanley Cup and he's only 27, I think they made out quite well giving up just a second-round pick and a prospect to land Tyler Toffoli for the stretch run here with Brock Besser gone. What is expected to be the end of the regular season, although Jim Benning suggested that Brock Besser might be back before the end of the year, which suddenly, if you get Besser and Toffoli in the fold, that's a good-looking top six when you look at Bo Horvat, Tanner Pearson, and Brock Besser, and then you've got Toffoli, Miller, and Pedersen. Suddenly, that's a much more formidable top six that the Canucks are throwing at you compared to what they had with that glaring hole prior to the deal made for Tyler Toffoli.
Yeah, a lot of people are pretty happy in Vancouver when it comes to the Canucks and excited for them to get into the playoffs. All right, what's next for you when it comes to the EA Sports circuit, James? And, I mean, it's been quite the celebrity tour you're on with that and Snoop Dogg. You got everything going on.
Yeah, that was Snoop was fun. We went down to Los Angeles to record 2 days at his studios in LA. And I would just say for everybody watching and listening right now, Snoop is pretty much everything you would expect and beyond. He's a massive sports fan. So it was a lot of talk about, it was during the time of the NBA Finals, too, between the Warriors and the Raptors. So it was a nice spirited discussion as he had a whole lot of Cali love. And, you know, we were repping the Maple Leaf here in California at the time. But yeah, it's back in the studio a couple days a week, and a lot of surprises in store for gamers and people that are loyal players of the NHL franchise from EA Sports. I'll just say this, and I've said this in a couple of interviews in the past, but as somebody who played the game, that had the opportunity to play NHL 94, NHL 95, and various iterations, whether it was NHL 98 or NHL 2002 or NHL 2006 or 2015, whichever one over the years. You know, before I became a broadcaster or a voice for the game, I was a fan. I was a gamer of the game. And so the one priority for me was to try to treat it with the most respect possible and have some fun with it. And I think we've tried to do that alongside Ray Ferraro and the rest of the EA broadcast team. They are you've got some really passionate, driven people behind the scenes that want everybody to enjoy the gaming experience as much as possible. And it's pretty cool, man, to be in a video game. I was like, what? I'm in a freaking video game. I mean,
no kidding. No kidding. New career goals now. That's incredible.
Yeah.
Now it's been fun.
Only get into Grand Theft Auto.
See, that would be great, right? That would be awesome. Because then you can let loose.
I'd be the guy to get carjacked.
Yeah, exactly. You don't exactly need to stay within the boundaries of language, probably, in that sense. That would be cool.
No, probably not.
No. Well, keep up the great work. It's been fun following your career, and the West Coast looks good on you, James.
Thanks, man. Yeah, the sun finally came out for the first time in about 3 months, so I think I finally worked on a tan there in the last week. So.
Good.
There you
go.
Good
to see you.
Thanks
for catching up.
You
bet.
You're watching Rod Pedersen On Demand. For more of The Rod Pedersen Show, visit rodpedersen.com or follow Rod Pedersen on social media.